Well, the map shows the route we plan to take from Budleigh Salterton in the east on the right hand side of the map, and we follow the coast path around to Exmouth and then up the estuary to Lympstone village. I'm in the seaside town of Budleigh Salterton on the south coast of Devon. This is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and the plan today is to walk westward along the coast path to Exmouth and possibly beyond. As you can see, the beach is pebble and there are cliffs ahead of us that we will take the path over. Well, it's a November morning, a typical autumn day, chilly with a wind. Unfortunate today that the wind is on our back, so that should make the going even easier. On the path out of Budleigh, all along here on the right hand side are these benches, and all the way up the hill, and on a sunny day there wouldn't be a spare seat available. The name Budleigh Salterton, Budleigh comes from the manor of Budleigh, so presumably that was many centuries ago someone's name, and Salterton because there used to be quite an industrial process here, processing salt. Now it's very much a gentrified town now, holiday resort, but once upon a time there's a lot of salt panning and lime burning. Now as I go up the slope, I'm looking back at Budleigh. You can see the curve of the bay, and just where the cliff starts there is an entrance into the River Otter. So if you want to carry on in that direction, you have to go inland some distance to cross the river. Well, we've done the short, sharp climb out of Budleigh, and now we're on a open green area. None of this walk is particularly hard. One of my favourite walks, in fact I've done it many times before, and a part of the southwest coast path. So if you are doing that trail, this is one of the easier sections you'll be walking. Well, past the green we now enter a path with hedges and trees on each side. There's about a mile of path like this. It slopes very slightly uphill. The sea is on our left and we'll get occasional glimpses of that. Very quiet this morning. It is a weekend. We expect to see a few people out and about. Are occasionally other walkers on the path, particularly dog walkers. Well, I've just passed in that group of people a wild camper, a lady that's put her tent up for the night, and I overheard that she's walking the whole of the southwest coast path. That's 630 miles, and she expects to finish in a couple of weeks. One of the interesting things on this path is that although we're 100 metres above the sea, the path stones are all rounded pebbles. Now they weren't put there, that's just what is here naturally, which tells us that a long time ago this area was under the sea. I imagine it has been pushed up by various seismic events, and here are all the smooth pebbles. Quite amazing. Now we've reached probably the highest point in the path, and you can see the cliffs as we go round past a large caravan site, and then round to the right is Exmouth, and then you head on towards Torquay and so on round the coast. The path heads down at this point. It can be a little slippery because, as I mentioned earlier, the surface is all pebbles. Put your foot on the wrong place and they roll like ball bearings. It's only a short section. And as we round the corner, we come out of the wooded and hedged bit, and we'll come into the open fields. You can see here through this gate, it opens up considerably. Now in other months this field is cultivated, is always full of various crops. It's been put out to rest now in the autumn, and they'll be sown again in the spring. This is a nice steady downhill section on soft ground. See the path bears away to the left here, and right along the top of these cliffs, and if we go towards the edge you can see how easily they erode, constantly being eroded. I've known this path be several metres closer to what used to be the edge, and the path has moved in over the years. In fact, the path used to go through that little gate there, which is now closed off and has been moved 15 metres further inland. At the end of the field we have a short piece where the path dips down to where a stream has cut through the countryside, and then back up the other side. Some 30 odd steps down and the same back up the other side. Now if you're walking the southwest coast path, there are a lot of places like this, and most of them are a lot more severe than this one. I remember one where the steps down were some 250 plus, and the same back up the other side, and that is very telling on the legs. Anyway, this one's straightforward. We've got the bottom, there's a little bridge. In fact, there's no water or little water in the stream today, but over the centuries it's cut a dip through the hillside. And now back up the other side. Well, we're out the other side, and again it's another field. This one again is laid fallow in November, and we're going up a bit of a slope on this field. We've got views of the sea to the left. Perhaps not looking its very best today without the sun, but still pretty good. And just at the top of that hill we enter the edge of a holiday park. Now on the south coast and the north coast of Devon and Cornwall, quite a number of these holiday parks. Some of them are privately owned, but most of them are on lease, 1 week, 2 weeks. Now I looked at my watch and it's just on the 1 hour from when we left Budleigh. So it's a pretty good walk. And we just follow this green path around the holiday park, and I'll pick it up again in a few minutes. Now, one of the things I always carry on my walks is a pair of secateurs, so when you get brambles infringing on the path, a few snips, and you help to make the path more accessible to other people. Well, that took 30 seconds. Now walking through an extension, or perhaps another holiday park, maybe an extension of the one we've just seen. It's all very clean, and even in the summer when they're very busy you don't see many people. They all tend to head down to the beaches. It's not a problem. Now up here on the left, if you can make out high fences, there is an area that's fenced off as a army firing range. Obviously not on a Sunday, it's not working, but that's a little bit part of the coast that you can't access. And if you come up here during the week, you will hear them firing on the firing ranges. So perhaps if you're planning on staying at this holiday park, you need to be aware of that. Now we've gone over a rise, and now we're going to head down again into this area. Maybe you can see in the distance next to the cliffs there, that's the path going up the hill. Now one of the advantages of having the holiday parks so close to the path is that you usually have shops and cafes which you can use. Now we come round the corner and you can see the beach that the people that stay in the holiday park use. Now at very low tide you can walk that beach right through to Exmouth. I'm not sure it's low enough at the moment, and if it's coming in you didn't ought to try it, because you could be stuck out there. A lovely spot. The path takes us around the top here. And directly in front of us is a cafe if you need refreshments on the walk. This sign tells us that we're halfway along the path to Exmouth, 2.5 miles back to Budleigh, 2 1/3 miles on to Exmouth, and that will be right into the heart of Exmouth. Now the path is heading downhill, And we're getting a view now to the right of the outskirts of Exmouth and the very long promenade and beach that it has. Now we come down to a place called Ockham Point, and out on the end here they've erected this thing. It was opened by the Prince of Wales, now the King, but I'm not quite sure what purpose it serves really. It's not a lighthouse or a navigation aid, it's just a pointed bit of concrete out on the end of Ockham Point. We carry on round. Another finger post. It just tells us we're on the coast path. And then we carry on. The path now enters a series of zigzags as it makes its way down from the cliffs down onto the beginning of the promenade or esplanade at Exmouth. So we just go down a made up footpath, zigzags backwards and forwards several times, and it gets us down to sea level. See over the edge there, you can see the promenade and the beach beneath us, and shortly we will be down there. Well, here we are at the beginning of the promenade at Exmouth. It's a long, well made up and well used path beside the sea, and we have to make our way along the length of it. Over the other side of the road are some beach huts. This seems to me a strange place to put beach huts, on the wrong side of the road for the beach. Well, we've been going for just over 2 hours, and part way along the promenade, an opportunity to get a hot drink. So we'll stop here for a few minutes. Well, that was a pleasant 15-minute break for a hot drink, and now we're back along the promenade at Exmouth. Beach is still fairly popular, although it's not particularly warm today. You notice everyone has their coats on, and some with hats. You can see the promenade curving away to the left. We're now entering the estuary of the River Exe. Directly across, probably can't see it very well today, there's a place called Dawlish Warren. That's a very pleasant spot. Part of it is a nature reserve that you shouldn't enter. A lot of migrating seabirds use this estuary as a resting stop on their journeys. On my right are some grand Victorian buildings, mostly hotels. These were built in the advent of the holiday resort in Victorian times. railways enable people to travel. So the various resorts had a large number of grand buildings built to accommodate the holidaymakers when they came down. These have been very well preserved. So many towns, the Victorian buildings are now in very bad disrepair, but here a splendid row of houses. Now we really are entering the estuary proper of the River Ex, and you can see the sandbanks across the water of Dawlish Warren. Tide's on the way out at the moment. Now if you're following the southwest coast path, then our paths diverge here. You'll normally take the ferry, which is not here at the moment. You take the ferry from this exit across the River Ex to Starcross, and then you'd continue around the coast. I'm not doing that. I'm going to walk up beside the estuary now to Lympstone village. Just here is the modern marina at Exmouth. Well, we've walked about half a mile through the back streets of Exmouth and to get onto the estuary trail. Now you're looking at the estuary. Clearly the tide is now out. We're hugging the side of the estuary along here, and that's true of a large part of the trail. On the right we've got a boat yard. And twice a day when the tide is up, the water comes right up to the banks here. But now, with the right equipment, you can walk right out on those sands. Often you'll see some of the fishermen out there digging for lugworms, and the camera won't pick it up, but I can see ahead of me a lot of birds on the mud flats here. These are the reason it's kept as a nature reserve, so the migrating birds can rest. Well, in front of me on the mud flats are hundreds of birds, and they all seem to be digging into the mud, finding something to eat. Absolutely hundreds of them. I have no way of telling you what they are. But they're all very busy eating. Now as we go up this the track up the estuary, there is the walking path, there is the cycling and walking path with a hard surface, and there is a railway, a local railway, which all follows the same route. So we'll be alongside the railway, but the trains are only down there every 30 minutes, little two-carriage trains. They're not going to disturb anybody. So we're just up this path, then we actually have to cross the railway briefly, and then we'll cross it back again a little later. It just runs down to Exmouth station and that way up to Exeter. Now this is part of the combined cycling and walking trail, and you can take this all the way up to Topsham. Ideal for youngsters with their bikes. We'll turn off this shortly and get back on the walking only trail. Well, you can see the main trail heading straight ahead and up the hill, but we're going to take a little turning here on the left and follow the banks of the estuary of the River Exe. You can see the railway line running along on our left, and at the end of this path we cross it, so we're closer to the river. Now this is where we take the crossing back onto the estuary side. I've just seen a train go up to Exmouth. So that won't be coming back for another 15-20 minutes. There we are, we've left the railway to one side. I'm back with the estuary. And I'm seeing just thousands of birds out on the mud flats. Well, we've been walking now for 3 hours, and you can see the banks along the estuary, and we'll be walking along the top of that bank for the next mile or two. You can walk the beach when the tide is out, but they ask you not to, so you don't disturb the bird life. Coming up the other way is the train heading back up to Exeter. Well, you won't get much closer to the river than this. When the tide's in, the water will be lapping up against this wall. It's a spectacular walk. Well, at the end of this path we join the cycle trail and a little lane. And we're back on the side of the River Exe. This is also a very popular spot when the weather's a bit brighter. Again, you wouldn't find a vacant seat along here. Very little traffic on this short section of lane. Well, we're now entering the village of Lympstone, or sometimes referred to as Lympstone village. That's to differentiate it from Lympstone Army Camp, which is a mile or two up the road.
They came because they were escaping.
Pretty little village. Stands right on the banks of the river. Popular as well because the cycle trail runs through it, as you can see. The trail that runs from Topsham to Exmouth. There are some pubs and cafes here, so room for refreshment. And of course there is the railway station on the line that runs from Exmouth up to Exeter. Just take a little turning here, I can show you a glimpse of the estuary again. Someone's trimming the lawn nearby. Well, I'm going to end my walk here in Lympstone village. Going to catch the train back up to Exeter. It's an excellent walk. It's taken 3.5 hours. Plenty of places to stop if you want refreshment. And not too strenuous on the hills. Not too many ups and downs. Well, while I wait for my train, I'll probably get myself something to eat here in the Swan Inn. The station is immediately around the corner. So till the next time.